for those who don't know, the sage in the stage in the Stoic philosophy is an unachievable ideal. I
Yeah.
was corrected about it by Mark and James themselves. And Interestingly, what Seneca says is ki we none of us, because none of us can be completely virtuous, so all of us have some degree of faults in each of us, that is, and the non-adherence of virtue is like a disease, so we are all sick people lying in hospital beds talking to each other about possible cures. That is
Yeah.
what philosophy is.
Yeah. There's no doctor there. There's no doctor coming to help us.
There's no
We have
healer.
to help each other. We're in the bed and we're like, now we might have a teacher, but that teacher is also sick.
Correct.
He's just gotten a little bit better. Like he's got a runny nose. He's not coughing up a lung. You know, um, he's just a little bit better than us. Um, we all have we all have work to do on ourselves and the world, and and those two things are connected. I want to make that sure. Like part of this isn't Jordan Peterson make your bed before you fix the world. This
Mhm.
is in order to fix the world. Part of that is making your bed, but part of making your bed is fixing the world. Familiar, but right intention,
Mhm.
right action. Um, so uh, I could do. I always break it down like this. So Superman. And there's different versions of Superman. We'll say there's Earth One Superman and Earth Two Superman.
Mhm.
Earth One Superman is flying around Metropolis, and he sees that Lois Lane is being mugged. The same thing happens to on Earth Two. Superman sees Lois Lane getting mugged. Earth One Superman says, "Ah, if I save Lois from this mugger, she'll go on a date with me." Earth 2 Superman goes, "Ah, Lois Lane is in danger. I should save her from the mugger." Those two Superman, those two Supermen are very different people. um, and the consequences might be the same. They might be wildly different, but it's hard to say that Earth 1 Superman is really a good person in the same sense that Earth 2 Superman is a good person. So you have to have the right intention, and then you have to have the right action. So the right action is really just,
Saving Lois.
yeah, it's whatever the situation calls for. It's a little more contextual, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So let's stick with Superman. Do you know Jimmy Olsen?
Yeah, I know Jimmy Olsen.
Jimmy Olsen
The
is
photographer, right?
the photographer. He's Superman's best friend,
Yeah.
and he wants to be a good person.
Hmm.
And so he's in the situation with Lois Lane,
Hmm.
and he says, "What would Superman do?" Well, Superman would jump in front of the bullet, punch the guy into the next building, but Jimmy Olsen can't do those things.
It
So
is in our power.
right, so Jimmy Olsen has to do whatever Jimmy Olsen can do. That might be cry for help, go
Hmm.
run for help,
Hmm.
something he has to do. So the question of what would Superman do is a good question. But the real question is, what would Superman do if he were Jimmy Olsen?
There are two sort of Latin Greek terms that keep floating around, and then we keep talking about in the group also. And you see Stoic teachers and blog posters, Broicism, and the money, the dollar-sized Stoicism guys
Yeah,
saying these also, which is Memento Mori and Premeditatio Molarum.
yeah,
If I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm sorry.
yeah. So they're actually kind of the same genre of practice,
Hmm.
if you think about it. So memento mori just means remember you'll die.
Hmm.
Um, that was also just part of like Roman life, but the Stoics took it on and it was part of Greek life too, but It's Latin for remember you will die.
Hmm.
And basically that just, you focus, like I said, death is not an evil. It's not a bad thing. We all die. It's not a bad thing.
Hmm.
It's just something that happens. We don't know when we're going to die. We don't know who around us are going to die. So we have to live our lives to the fullest. And by that, I don't mean go out and party and get girls and Lamborghinis. What I mean is we have to be the most virtuous we can right now, the best people we can right now. And that includes loving our families and our community and our to the fullest extent.
The concept of okiosis coming
Right.
from inside to out.
So it's not only just remember you will die, but those around you will also die. Epictetus says, when you kiss your child goodnight, tell yourself that you will love a mortal. Well, that sounds like really cruel. Like you're just like a goldfish. But what it means is, I love a mortal. This mortal will die someday, and they might die while I'm still alive. So I have to one, love them the best I can now, and maybe make sure that the chances of dying are smaller.
And a part of it all is also preempting the grief, understanding
Right.
and processing it in a way so that
Right.
when the situation comes, you can be the most virtuous self
that's why I said that Memento Mori is a form of Premeditatio Molarum, which that is Latin for premeditation of evil. That sounds pretty nasty, but it just means that bad stuff is going to happen. Let's get ready and prepare ourselves for it. And so you can see that my favorite, like it's probably the best encapsulation of Stoicism, which is Meditations 2.1. And it starts out like, when you wake up in the morning, remember that you're going to deal with treacherous, greedy, selfish, blah, 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 blah. That's Premeditatio Molarum. I don't speak Latin. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. The premeditation of evils. When I wake up, I'm going to deal with people that suck, or at least I think suck. But that passage goes on further, and it says, "But remember that they share, and I also suck. But we all have this divine spark in us. This is not a direct translation. I suck. I have a divine spark. They have a divine spark, and all the stuff that they do that I don't like is actually material for me to do good with. And we work together, even though we are in opposition to each other in some ways. We are working together like eyelids, upper and lower eyelids, and upper and lower teeth, to do the work of the world, to do the work of humanity, right? So in that sense, you don't just think about how much or what can go wrong. You have to provide the solution to what's going to go wrong as well. Otherwise, you're just going to get anxious, right? So I could use it in a very, very less lofty 2.1 version of today. You're what, almost 12 hours ahead of me. I'm here, and we had a time set up, and I said, he's staying up late to talk to me at my time. That's very kind of him, and I'm gonna chunk out a couple times because that's a hard thing to figure out. This time difference.
Calculations, right?
So yeah, that's a hard thing. So I'm just gonna chunk out some time. So in case he messes up. And also there's I was looking over our messages, and um, there you asked me a question like, "Hey, are you going to be free tomorrow or something like that? Are you still on for tomorrow?" And I said, "As far as I know." And that's a less like if I were more of a like godly person, I might say God willing, or if I were um, more if I use stoic terms, I might say if fate allows. That's
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I said as far as I know, everything's all right. In the Midwest, we would say God willing, and the creeks don't rise,
The
which
creeks
means
don't
like
rise.
you know
Yeah,
if
it's not kind of
unless
true.
there's a thunderstorm and everything gets washed out, I
Yeah.
can make it. And that's a form of that kind of idea. You say, well, as far as I know, fate willing, as you know, those sorts of things. Like I don't know what's going to happen, but right now I'm planning on it. That's a form of it.
Yeah, I'm doing everything I can to accomplish this goal with what is in my power, what
Yeah,
is up to me, not what is up to the
the world.
cosmos,
Yeah, yeah.
everything.
So this is a very controversial subject in modern Stoicism. Whether we should jettison the idea of Stoic God, we should change the idea of Stoic God. Is it compatible with Christianity because it's all Americans and that's all we care about is Christianity? Um, but the Stoic God is roughly the universe. It's pantheistic. Uh, Everything is the universe.
Mhm.
Um, there's different forms of pantheism, but that's just the roughest idea. You can think of God as an organism. That
Mhm.
doesn't mean it has cells and mitochondria and stuff like that, but you can as a think of it as a seed that grows into a tree. The seed happened a long time ago, and we are part of that tree now. We are we are the leaves and the ends of the branches, and it has roots, and some of us might be roots and all that stuff. But we are parts of the body of God. There's a passage that sometimes gets quoted on our page, and it causes a lot of stir by Chrysippus. The universe itself is God and the universal outpouring of its soul. So that's a definition of God. So we can break down that definition. So the universe itself is God and the universal outpouring of its soul. So universe is God, right? Now, soul for the Greeks was the source of change, the source of growth, um, and it wasn't like a ghost that leaves your body. It was the thing that moves you, that animates you, and everything had a soul. All living things had a soul. So the universe itself is a God. So we have the universe, and then the thing that animates the universe causes it to grow and move and change. So as the
Function or
universe
change.
changes, that
Mhm.
is a function of God, and that includes us.
So that is
Um,
where fate willing comes from, right?
right. So that it's so you have the passive
Mhm.
principle,
Mhm.
which is the matter of the universe, and then you have the active principle, which is the soul. And we're getting into Heraclitus here. Everything's always changing, including the universe.
Mhm.
And the way things change, how things change, the laws of nature, if you will, is the rationality, the
Got it.
logos.
The look. All right. The logos, the world.
Yeah, the logos of the universe. Yeah,
Logos of the universe. All right.
you can take the idea, the Stoic idea of the God, that the universe is alive,
Hmm.
um, as literal as you want, right? You can think of it as a body. You can think of it as a tree. You can, or you can abstract out a little bit and just come away with everything changes, everything's connected. We are all part of one big system.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
That's a very abstract version of of godness, uh, and that's enough, I think, for some.